Hello and welcome everyone to today's workshop on taking control of your database with automated schema changes. Thank you for joining us. My name is Terry Van Cleve and I'm a marketing event manager for the developer initiative here at Oracle. Today we're excited to get hands-on and show you the fundamentals of automating database changes with SQL Liquibase using the Oracle MovieStream dataset. If you do not currently have an Oracle Cloud account, you can head to bit.ly/tryOCI0725 to get signed up and follow along with the lab steps. If you prefer to watch and complete the lab later on at your own pace, we'll also be recording the session and emailing you the recording after the workshop concludes with the resources too, so don't worry. If you have any questions during the workshop, we've set up a channel in our developer public Slack called Workshop SQLcl that you can access at the QR code here or at bit.ly/odevrel_Slack. Once you're in, you'll land in the general channel, and from there you can search for the workshop channel. We will also be checking the Zoom chat and Zoom Q&A areas throughout the workshop, and we'll open up for live Q&A at the end. You can access the lab guide by following this link or QR code here, and I'll pause here just for a moment, and then I will put these in the chat in just a second as well. Okay, and today's workshop will be presented by Zach Talk, Senior Product Manager, Jeff Smith, Distinguished Product Manager, and Chris Hoyna, Senior Product Manager. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Zach.
Thank you, Tara. So thank you all for being here today. My name is Zachary Telke. I'm a Senior Product Manager here at Oracle on the database tools team, and today I will be helping you learn how you can automate your database object deployment using SQLcl Liquibase. So we only have an hour here today for the session, so it's gonna be pretty meaty, but don't worry about time if during this workshop you don't finish being able to go through this. Both your OCI free tier environment and the lab instructions are yours to use following this. So I'll leave the QR code up for one more second in case anyone needs to grab that link to get to the cloud account. Now moving on to the next slide. So I'll be steering the ship during this presentation and walking you through the workshop, and Jeff Smith and Chris Hoyna will be helping Tara monitor the chat and answer any questions that you may have during this presentation. And then here is the lab guide where your workshop instructions will be if you need that one more time. And then to go over a quick agenda. So we're in the webinar intro right now. Then we'll be getting started with your Oracle Cloud account, which is where you'll have a couple minutes to get that Oracle Cloud sign up taken care of and answer any questions if you're stuck with that. Then we'll be getting into the workshop setup section where you'll be setting up your autonomous database and getting your Oracle Cloud environment ready to work with SQLcl Liquibase. After that, we'll get into the SQLcl Liquibase basics, and then we'll finishing up with some tagging and rollback information. And then finally, we'll wrap up the webinar. So I'm going to give a little bit more information on SQLcl Liquibase before we get too deep into things, but to be efficient with time, we're now going to get to the Get Started with Oracle Cloud section. And once we get to the part of the workshop setup section, where you're provisioning your autonomous database that you'll be using database objects, I'll use the couple of minutes that takes to provision your database, a couple minutes of time to just explain a little bit more about SQLcl Liquibase and how it works. Okay, so the first section that we'll be in is getting started here. If you click that link on your QR code, or which should have been provided in the chat, you should be taken to an Oracle Cloud sign up page that looks something like this. All you have to do is fill out your information, verify your email, and then after that is done, you'll be taken to the Oracle Cloud homepage, which will look like this. If after you sign up, for whatever reason, you need to re-log back in, all you have to do is go to cloud.oracle.com, and then you can enter your account information that you'll be creating with the sign up link. And yeah, one person asked, it looks like they're curious about the credit card for sign up. That's just for identification, verification. You won't be charged for anything in this workshop. All of the Oracle free tier account features that you'll have access to and everything in this workshop is always free. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay, I'll start getting us into the workshop now. So after you're signed in to your Oracle Cloud account, the next section of the lab guide that you'll be going to is Lab 1 setup here. In this section, we'll be creating our Oracle Autonomous Database that we'll be using for this workshop, and then also creating our database users and the objects that we will be working with and showing off SQLcl Liquibase. So the first section that you just go to start going through these instructions is task 1 of Lab 1 setup. I'm going to switch over my screen share to my Oracle Cloud environment just so you can follow along if you'd like as I go through this information. Okay, I have the Oracle Cloud page up. So to get started, what you're first going to do to get your database up and running is click the hamburger menu here in the upper left corner, and then click Oracle Database. You can either click the Autonomous Database button here, or I believe the instructions use the Autonomous Data Warehouse button right below here. Either of them are fine. It won't make a difference for our purposes. Once you click on that, you'll see the compartment that you'll be working in right here. If you're using one of the Oracle Cloud free signup accounts, root compartment's fine. The account I'm using for this is a free tier account as well, so I'll just be working out of it. If you prefer a different compartment, if you're, say, using your cloud accounts you already have, just make sure you're in the compartment that you would like to be creating your autonomous database in. So now we'll click that Create Autonomous Database button, and we'll start filling in our information to get this up and running. So this section is in task 2 of Lab 1. And the first thing that we're going to do is start filling in our display name and database name information. For display name, the workshop uses Liquibase workshop as the default. And then for the database name, LB workshop. For your workload type, choose data warehouse. For deployment type, serverless. And then for your database configuration, you can keep it on always free. We just only need these features. And then for the database version, I'll be selecting 19C. For the administrator credentials here, just enter a password that you'd like to be using for your admin user. If you scroll down under task 2, step 7, it will show you the requirements for your password. So if you just want to take a quick glance at that to make sure that you're following the password rules, it's all pretty standard stuff. It just needs to be between 12 and 30 characters. And using your username, for example. So I'll quickly input a password for that. And then for your network access, do access type secure access from everywhere. Require mutual TLS checked. Your license for your always free will be license included. And then after that's all good to go, all you have to do is click that Create Autonomous Database button. So as you see on my screen, it has your ADBS provisioning. This will take a couple minutes, and I'll use this time so I can explain a little bit more about how SQLcl Liquibase works. So what we have on the agenda following this is, like I mentioned, after your autonomous database is up and running, then you'll be creating your database users and objects, and then we'll be getting into the Liquibase basics section. For that, first we'll start with the Liquibase help command, then we'll teach you how to generate your Liquibase files. We'll teach you how you can inspect the SQL before you run your Liquibase updates and create your objects in other users and schemas. And then we'll wrap that section up by talking about how to understand the Liquibase files called changelogs and changelog tables. After that, we'll show you how to, in the tagging and rollback section, bookmark your database state with the tag command, and then undo your Liquibase files with rollback command. So that's just undoing files that you've applied. And then we'll wrap things up. So to just give you a little bit more of a high-level overview of how SQLcl Liquibase works. So basically, oops, I'll go back slide. Yeah, so basically, the Liquibase functionality of SQLcl allows you to capture, version, and deploy your database changes. It's embedded in SQLcl, which is our free command line interface tool for working with the Oracle database. And with SQLcl, it allows you to execute SQL and PL SQL, and it also supports all SQL plus commands. Some of you might already be familiar with the open source Liquibase platform. SQLcl Liquibase is built on top of this, and it contains all of the features of open source Liquibase, but with much more extended functionality that we added. We created new commands optimized for capturing the entire Oracle database schema, individual objects. So not only can you just capture entire schemas at a time, but on SQLcl Liquibase, this isn't in the open source platform. We created commands for if you just want to say, grab one table and create a file around it. And then we also have commands for capturing Apex objects and Oracle REST data service objects. So with Apex, if you're not familiar, that's our low-code development platform for building applications here at Oracle. So any Apex applications or workspaces can also be deployed using Liquibase and SQLcl, and with Oracle REST data services. That's our platform for easily being able to build REST APIs. So any REST APIs that you create, you can also deploy using this as well. And all of this new functionality that we added is exclusively for the Oracle database. Just a little bit more about SQLcl for the uninitiated. It's a modern replacement for SQL+. As I mentioned in the other slide, it contains all of SQL+'s commands with extra functionality that we added, including this Liquibase feature. SQLcl is accessible anywhere, Windows, Mac, Linux, and the Oracle Cloud Shell. So not only can you use it as an Oracle Cloud, which we will be doing for our workshop environments, but it's also a super easy download on your desktop with working with it locally and connecting to your Oracle database. So SQLcl is loaded with features, including query history, formatting options, code completion, customizable status bar, and then VI and Emacs support, and also Oracle Data Pump. So if we were to talk about SQLcl Liquibase and not mention development pipelines, it'd be a real shame, because a lot of Liquibase's true power that you can leverage is in the ability to use this as a puzzle piece in your larger CI/CD pipelines. With the way that Liquibase files are set up is when you capture your database object, say if you're in schema A and you capture the object into a file called a changelog, and you want to deploy that to another schema, all it does is it writes the changelog file to your current working directory. So it's super easy for you to track your changelogs with version control and GitHub. And to give you a little bit of an example of what a sample pipeline would look like that you can automate with SQLcl Liquibase as a part of it, you could say have a developer save your local work to changelogs, and then that gets committed to your repository. From there, you can use Jenkins or another automation tool to kick off your pipeline. You can have a Terraform script create your database clone and execute the environment setup scripts. From there, this is where SQLcl Liquibase comes in, where it can automate the deployment of the database objects that you specified in the changelog files in that first section. And then after that, you can run your unit tests and check your pipeline for any Aura errors in the logs, just to make sure that everything is running appropriately. So this is a bit of a teaser to say how you can automate the database section of your development pipeline, and just kind of reinforce on some concepts that I mentioned before. So not only can you create a pipeline that automates the deployment of your database objects, but also you can do the same with your Oracle REST APIs and your Apex applications. So that's a good point to stop on the slides for right now. Let me take a look at how the autonomous database is doing. Looks like that's good to go. So as you can see, the autonomous database is now up and running. So let's get some database objects created. So first we'll start by actually creating our database users. So the step for this will be task 3 of lab 1, if you're following along in the instructions. What you're going to do is to create your database users easily on the autonomous dashboard here, click database actions, and then I'll do view all database actions. Okay, so from this screen, we're going to click on SQL, and this will bring up a SQL worksheet that will be connected to our admin database user. So if you take a look in the instructions under step 3 of task 3, at the end of that step 3, there's a little expandable option that says create MovieStream manager and MovieStream dev code. If you expand that little code block, you will see a script for creating our database users. Click the copy button on that, and then you can paste it into SQL worksheet here. Before you run it though, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so I can see it better on my end. Okay, yeah, so before you run the script, there are 2 areas that you have to edit here. Both of them are marked by this insert password in brackets. What you want to do is delete that entirely, brackets included, and put the password that you want each of your users to be. So the first one here in line 2 is going to be your MovieStream manager database user password. And then if you scroll down to line 36 here, this is where you'll put the password for your MovieStream dev user. I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick as I put a password for that. But as soon as that's done, all you have to do is click the run script button here. Okay, I'm setting my MovieStream manager password right now. Now let's set the one for MovieStream dev. So once you execute the SQL script, you should see in the script output here a lot of like created, succeeded, altered. Everything looks like it's all good here to go. The main area where people usually run into issues with this is if your password doesn't meet the password requirements, it can make things a little bit funky. So I recommend that while you're setting your passwords, just under that step 3 of task 3, just take a look at those password requirements. If, for example, you create a password that didn't fit the password criteria and it caused some errors for when you ran the script, don't worry, just change the passwords in both places to something that does fit the criteria, and you can rerun the script and it will get what you need working properly. You don't have to worry about like a failed run from that ruining things. So after you take care of creating your database users, you can then go back to your autonomous database tab here, which will take you back to the dashboard. And now we will get started creating our database objects. So to do this, let's get our connection credentials up and running. What you're going to do to connect to SQLcl and your database is we'll be using Oracle Cloud Shell, which is embedded in the cloud up here. Just this little developer tools button to the right of the region that you're working in. Click on that and then click Cloud Shell. And while that's getting all set up, the section of the instructions we are on now is under task 4, create database objects for the lab. It is the end of step 3. So you'll see a little command that is copyable that starts with OCI DB autonomous database. You will want to copy that from the instructions, but don't paste it in Cloud Shell right away. What you want to do is open up a notepad or other text editor. I'm on Windows and just use Notepad because you don't have to worry about it trying to autocorrect any grammar or anything. Paste that there. Let me actually share my screen on that just so I can double check to make sure everyone knows I'm talking about. Yeah, so it's this section of the workshop instructions. The two areas of this that you're going to replace in your text editor is the insert password section here. This is just where you set a password for what you want your wallet to be. So you're creating that now. And then this little section here where it says insert OCID. Let me go back to sharing my OCI environment. So with the OCI environment, where you'll get that OCID is just right here under general information. All you have to do is click that little copy block and it will copy your OCID and you can add it to the command in the text editor. So I'm going to do that now and set my password off screen. And what I'm going to do now is just paste that command with those two fields updated into Cloud Shell here. The way I do it just to make sure that like no hidden character format stuff gets weird with the paste is I right click and I'll always just do paste as plain text. I don't believe it's always needed, but it's just a nice habit I like to have. So I'll stop sharing my screen as I put my wallet stuff in right now real quick.
For those of you following along, we're just using the Cloud Shell and autonomous environment that OCI gives us because it makes it really easy to set up a database and run SQLcl. But all of this material 100% applies for any Oracle database anywhere. You can download SQLcl for free, no sign-in required. You can run it on your laptop, on your server, and connect to any database you want. Just for the purpose of hosting these labs, we use OCI, and in Cloud Shell, SQLcl is there by default. So it's just convenience.
Yeah, so I cleared my screen, but we generated our wallet. And if I do the ls command, you can now see wallet lb workshop.zip right there. So now that that's done, under step 6 of task 4, you will see, so you'll see this download setup changelogs.zip right here. You'll want to click that button to download to your computer some Liquibase files. In the setup section, we're actually going to be using Liquibase to set up our database environment. So you'll get a little bit of a taste of how that works here while we're still technically not into the main workshop content, which is nice. So this zip file will contain the database objects that we're going to populate the MovieStream manager schema with. And I'll show you how you can upload that easily to Cloud Shell. Okay, so after you download that zip file to your local computer, the way that you get into Cloud Shell is by clicking this little settings icon, click upload, select from your computer, and then you can click on that zip file and then upload. So that's successfully uploaded, just using ls to list the directory files, and you can see the zip file is there. So now under step 9, we're going to use the unzip command that we're copying and pasting to unzip those changelog files. So now that we have done that, the next thing we're going to do is to move to the directory, the setup changelog directory, where our changelog files are located. This is under task 4, step 10. You'll see 2 change directory CD commands back to back. That's not a typo. It's just the way that the folders are organized, like in terms of the layering. So you just need to do that twice to get in. So when you paste that command, you'll see how on my screen it has it twice. Just make sure you hit enter 2 times to make sure it goes all the way through. We're now in our setup changelogs directory. If I just show the files in this directory real quick, you can see all of our changelog files are here. So that's how you know we're in the right place. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to log into SQLcl finally. So the command we're going to do this with is SQL no log. Now we're in SQLcl. We're going to set SQLcl to point to the credential wallet for our database that we created. And the way that we're going to do that is after the SQL no log command in step 2 under the connect to MovieStream manager user and create user objects section. It has a set cloud config command there. What you want to do is paste that in your notepad again, because there is one section that you have to change. The section that you're changing is in the brackets where it says OCI CLI profile name. That is, let me just quickly paste mine so I can show you. Okay, so that OCI CLI profile name, it's the name that you see if you look a little bit higher up in my Cloud Shell prompt there, where it says Zachary_Ta. That profile name is just everything before the @Cloud Shell. So you can easily see where it is there. I think it's just a variation of your username. So once you replace that field and you're in SQLcl with SQL no log, just run this set cloud config command. Now that that's done, so from here, if we use the show TNS command, you can see your different connection options here. And there's a little bit about how each of these different ones work in step 6 of the instructions. If that's something that you're interested in, the information's there for after this webinar. Thought it'd just be good to include it because I always find it personally helpful to know how the connections that we have available differ. So after that section, you'll see that there's a command for connecting to your MovieStream manager. So you can paste that. And now at the prompt, you can put your password that you set on that SQL worksheet page. So MovieStream manager was the first database user that you created and set the password for. So just take that password that you wrote down and enter it. And now we are connected to our database user. So if we run a tables command now, we can see that our database user has no tables. So to change this and just show off for the first time how SQLcl Liquibase works, we'll now be running the Liquibase update command to add those changelog files that we uploaded. So all you do for that command, it's in step 6, Liquibase update, then the changelog file parameter, And then the file is controller.xml. This is the master file that controls the deployment of all of your individual changelog files. So when you're updating a full schema, that's what you put there. If you click enter, it should probably ask for a password for your database user here. Just enter that again. And it will start creating your database objects. So as you can see, super quick to get those tables created. And then if we just take a look at our schema with the tables command, we can now see that it is populated. So at the end of this step, we have our database environment all set up for the workshop. So what you can do is just click the exit button or just type exit, and it will disconnect you from SQLcl and bring you back to your Cloud Shell terminal. So that's the end of the setup section. We are starting to be a bit tight for time, so I'm going to keep going at this point. But if you get stuck, just continue to ask your questions in the QA section and also the chat. And you're also more than welcome to go at your own pace or just say, follow along with me watching now, and then continue this on your own time, whatever is easiest for you. So in this next section, Lab 2, this is where we'll be teaching the fundamental concepts of Liquibase. So the first thing we're going to do is reconnect back to MovieStream Manager, and then we'll be teaching you how the Liquibase help command works. This is just a great way to just see a list of all the commands available for Liquibase and some descriptions on that. After that, we'll be generating Liquibase changelogs in MovieStream Manager and then deploying those into our MovieStream dev user. So even though in the setup section, we just technically deployed a bunch of changelogs, what we're going to be doing is recapturing those objects using the generate command, just so you can see how creating those files yourself works. And then those files that we create will then log into MovieStream dev user and deploy them there. So under Lab 2, Task 1, the first thing we're going to do is just go to our root directory. And now we are going to create a directory for the changelog files that we'll be creating. So the command for that is just to make dir, and then we're going to call it MovieStream changelogs. After that's done, the next command is to change directory to MovieStream changelogs that we just created, and then do SQL no log to get back to SQLcl. So from here, just copy that set cloud config command and paste it into your notepad. It's like 2 commands in one in that little script there. So probably just easiest to copy and paste the whole thing and just manually reset that OCI CLI profile name. And then once you do that, you can recopy those 2 commands, paste it back into your prompt. And then we have that second one running to connect to MovieStream Manager. Enter the password again. And now we are connected. So to give you a little bit of a taste of the Liquibase help command, I'll just run that right now. Let me also maximize my screen just to make it a little bit easier to see. So yeah, as I was mentioning, this is a very easy way to see just all of the different Liquibase commands available and what they do. I'm going to switch over and show you in the instructions. So that was Liquibase help, which will just give you a list of all of the commands. If you want extra information on specific commands, all you have to do is type Liquibase help and then the command name that you want additional info on. In this case, in the example here on the instructions, it has generate schema. So it will show you information about what that command does, and then also all of the available parameters for the command, like the optional parameters you can set to fine-tune that. On top of that, we also have a Liquibase help example command, which will just show you some example use case patterns of using Liquibase. So that's a little bit on that. Next thing that I'll be doing is, now that we're back in MovieStream Manager, we will be using Liquibase generate schema to capture to files the entire Oracle database schema that we have here. So we'll be using two optional parameters alongside this. We'll be using split in SQL. Split is used to just neatly organize your files into folders by object type. So it'll have your changelog files just organized in folders by like tables, procedures, constraints, etc. And then what the SQL parameter does there is, alongside each individual XML changelog file, it will create a SQL file for review that is just like an easy to read SQL file, just showcasing the SQL that runs for the database object in the changelog. We don't recommend you run those SQL files directly. It's more for review purposes when you're running your Liquibase changelogs. And if it's in the XML format, we recommend just keeping it as that. So let's run the command. I'll switch back to my command prompt screen. And now let's run the generate schema commands. And you can see it's capturing all of the database objects here. Should just take a minute. Okay, that's all done. So by using exclamation mark and then ls, you can bypass SQLcl to just run directly on your terminal. In this case, Cloud Shell, the ls command. This can just let us take a quick look at our directory, and we can see that we have the controller.xml changelog file and also a tables folder, because all of the database objects we have is specifically table database object type in this instance. So now let's change directory to the table folder, and we'll just cat one of our changelog files, the review ones, just to show you how like that review file works. So using the bypass and then cat commands for customer table.sql, you can see how for this review file for the customer table database object, it just shows you the SQL, in this case, the create table one that is used to create that table into a new database user. So next, let's go back to our MovieStream changelogs directory. And now for the next step, we're currently under step 5. We have a create table command for creating a table called merchandise. We're going to run that quick, and then we're just going to showcase really quick how you can capture database objects one-off as well. So we just created the merchandise table, and using the Liquibase generate object commands, we can just, instead of having to just capture your entire schema like we did before, you can just capture one database object. And we'll be doing with this command. For the parameters, you have object type table. And then for the object name parameter, you just put the table name, which is merchandise. So then you run that, and we now have our merchandise table.xml changelog file created. And then we'll be using this later on in the workshop in the tag and rollback section. So that's all we need for that right now. So now that that's done, we can exit from MovieStream Manager, and we're going to be moving over to MovieStream Dev to apply our objects that we saved. CD to MovieStream changelogs, make sure we're there, and do SQL no log. From here, we're going to do the set cloud config again, copy that code block, add it to your text editor, change out that profile name. Then enter our password for MovieStream Dev this time to connect. And now that we are connected, let's just quickly show using the tables commands. We don't have any tables right now. So before we actually run Liquibase update, I just want to show off the Liquibase update SQL commands. What this does is it will create a review file of all the SQL that will execute with an update command before you actually run it. So that way, before you do a big update to your database schema, you can double check to make sure that everything's running exactly as you expect and make any manual alterations that you need from there. So with this command, changelog file controller.xml, and then for the output file, that's just, you just put a name there for the review file you want to create. And now let's take a quick look at the file. You can see that it is under our directory as MovieStream update SQL, and then just take a quick peek inside of it. Here is just an example of what that will look like. And it just comments the different sections of what's going on, and then it shows just all the SQL that it will run. Then after you use that more command to take a look at this, so you don't have to just click enter to go through the whole thing. You can just use Q to quit out of that. So now that that's done, let's run our changelog files. Looks like the connection closed, so I'm going to exit out quickly and then re-log back in. Just make this quicker, I'll just grab that last command block that I have in Notepad still. Now I need to do SQL no log first. Okay, there we go. Now let's set cloud config again and reconnect to MovieStream Dev. Okay, so now that we're back in, let's now double check. Yep, no tables. Now let's run our Liquibase update. You can see our tables being created here. And now just using the tables. Looks like connection closed again. That's weird. Let me try exiting one more time. But yeah, if your connection just randomly closes, just exit out and relog back in. It's probably the quickest way to get through that. Okay, now let's take a look again and see those tables that we created. So yeah, we can see that our update ran through successfully. We have all of our different tables created. And then here's just us taking a peek at the movie table and some of the characteristics of the data definition language for that. So to go over to the instructions, the last thing that we have on the command right here is select star from movie. When you run this, you'll see that no rows generate. This is just because SQLcl Liquibase is for applying the actual database objects themselves automatically to new schemas and databases for data loading options. I have this entire tab. We don't have the time to go through it now, but I've compiled a bunch of different information on all of Oracle's information on just how you can load data into your database. So highly recommend checking out this resource for after your database objects are deployed to their new schema, that's all set up and ready to go. Here are some good resources for then loading it with your data. So now that that's done, we will be actually skipping lab 3 here, which is the section dedicated to better understanding how changelog tables and changelogs work. What I'll do is I put together just a single slide cheat sheet on this section, just to give you a high level overview and so you can understand what's going on here. But for all the finer details and extra information on that, I recommend taking a look at this slash section on your own time and just using it as like a personal resource for when you're going through and tinkering this on your own, because it'll be a really good way of just getting a hold of what's going on there. So I'm going to switch back to my slideshow. So to give you a little bit of a cheat sheet on changelog and changelogs tables, this is how they work. So what are changelogs? Changelogs are the name for the Liquibase files that your database objects get saved to. As we saw in the workshop that we were just going through, if you run Liquibase generate object, it will capture one database object, and that one database object will get saved to one changelog file. So there's exceptions to this rule, but a general rule of thumb is each individual changelog file is usually one database object. Then if you run the Liquibase generate schema commands, you're going to get a bunch of different changelog files because you have a whole lot of database objects. Not only will you have all those individual files, but you'll also have the controller.xml that we've been seeing, which manages the deployment of all those individual files and makes sure that it happens in the right order. So for what's inside changelogs, basically changelogs are set up into two main sections. The first is just metadata information, which is just information defining your XML documents, and then just also defining some of the aspects of the changelog. And then the second part of it is the change set section. So change sets are the section of your changelog where the actual set of instructions for the database changes being applied are. So in these sections, that's where the specific information is being read when you run Liquibase update to populate a new database schema or update an existing one that already has objects in it. So that's changelogs, and then changelog tables. So the first time that you run Liquibase update in a schema, or just a Liquibase update command in your schema, not only will your objects be populated, but you'll also see 3 additional tables automatically created. This is database changelog lock, database changelog actions, and database changelog. What these do is help Liquibase manage your Oracle database and the changes that it applies to it. For a little bit about each of these tables, How it works is database changelog locks ensures that only one instance of Liquibase is running on a database schema at a time. All it does is a simple 0-1 binary lock. So when a Liquibase instance wants to make changes, it'll set that lock to 1, so nothing else can mess with it. And then when it's done making the changes, it'll switch the lock back to 0. For database changelog, this tracks which change sets have been run in your database. And then finally, database changelog actions tracks the actual state of your database objects and the SQL statements executed during deployment. So the first two tables are in open source Liquibase. Database changelog actions is actually an additional table that we created for SQLcl Liquibase, because you can learn more about this in our documentation, but we added some under the hood stuff, which we call dynamic object transformation. And basically with the enhancements that we did to Liquibase, we have improved the way that database objects can be altered to give more flexibility over the open source platform. And this table is part of what helps just track that information. So here's kind of the cheat sheet of everything going on in that section of the lab. But I highly recommend you take a look at that for just some actual physical examples you can look at. And then also in that section, I contain information on what all the different columns in these 3 changelog tables actually does. So it's a really good reference for just staying on top of that. So let's see. We can quickly get through just tagging and rollbacks. That won't take more than a minute or two. I just want to show you all before we wrap things up how easy that is to do. So let me just get quickly back to my command prompt here. Okay, yeah, so we're still logged into MovieStream dev. And what we'll be doing now is just show off tagging and rollback is under lab 4. This is the tag and rollback section. So first, let's just make sure that right directory, MovieStream changelogs, and then we're going to run the Liquibase tag command. Enter the password. So how the tag command works is think of it as a bookmark for your database state that then when you apply other Liquibase changes, you can use it as a reference to potentially roll back to. So with the tag command, that tag parameter right before version 1, you're just choosing what you want to name your tag. In this case, I did version 1 with that. So, and then if you do select star from database changelog, the database changelog table also marks your tags that you can then see. If you just look at the bottom right here, you can see version 1 there as well. And as I mentioned, information about how all the columns here and what they do is in that lab 3 of the workshop. Okay, so that merchandise table that we created back in lab 2, we're going to be showing how to do tags and rollbacks of that. So first, we currently don't have the merchandise table in this database, so let's add it with Liquibase update. So that's been created. Running the tables command, you can see merchandise has been added. And let's say, for example, you're a developer and you're using merchandise as a database table for your work. Your manager passed you the changelog for that, but then after you deployed it, like we just did, let's say that changelog had some issues with it, or the table is still just being under construction and needs some updates. So no worries at all that you've applied this to your database. To quickly be able to roll back those changes, you can use the rollback command. So how it works is you have Liquibase rollback changelog file parameter, then the name of the changelog you want to roll back, in this case, merchandise table.xml, then tag command and the tag you want to roll back to. So when we run that, we can see that merchandise has been rolled back. and that the table is now gone. So that is the end of the workshop. And just to quickly give you some information for leaving this section or this session. Sorry that the formatting is being weird here. Just to give you some extra information, the QR code is the lab guide again if you need it. If you look under the Learn More tab there is a ton of just articles and extra resources, including our documentation and the SQLcl download page. All you have to do is download SQLcl and Liquibase will be automatically included. And then Jeff, Chris, and I all blog on our text. So check out our blogs. A lot of the articles that I have in the Learn More section are some cool information and just dives into using SQLcl Liquibase. And then if you have any questions about the technology at all, feel free to reach out to us wherever is easiest. We all have Oracle email addresses, and we're also all available on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. So there we go. That fixed the problem with the formatting. Yeah, and then I'll make sure the slide deck gets passed on to you all so you have the information with that. We have an upcoming events page here. And then finally, I just want to thank you for all of your time. I know we had to go a bit quick with everything here, but yeah, feel free to continue this workshop on your own. And if you have any questions or you want to see any content surrounding SQLcl Liquibase, or if I can just help you in any way, please feel free to reach out.